give you some great ideas too.
Very good. So Quincy, take it away, and we really appreciate all of the content and training you're going to give us today.
All right. So what I'm going to do is get right into it. And we have, roughly an hour's worth of material, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions. But just to introduce myself, whoops, that was an old slide there. I'm president and founder of some company that used to be called Interest Retirement Services
That's
Inc., but it
funny.
actually is now Quest IRA Inc., as you see there. I'm not sure how that happened. I apologize for that.
It's no problem.
I am an attorney at law and licensed in Texas since 1991. I'm a certified IRA services professional, which basically means I do know a lot about IRAs in general. I was a former fee attorney for American Title Company, so I've closed lots of real estate and published a lot of materials and co-author and editor of the book Real Estate Investment Using Self-Directed IRAs and Other Plans, along with Dyke Spotterford out of Atlanta and George Yeiter, a CPA here in Houston. So that's just a little background on me. Of course, being a lawyer, I got to have my disclaimer, Jim. Sorry about this, but Quest IRA Inc. does not provide tax, legal, or investment advice, nor do we endorse any products, services, or investments of any type. So all we're doing is providing education, and you're supposed to consult with your own attorneys, accountants, and financial advisors before doing anything or entering into any type of investment. So have to put that out there in every
Very
presentation
important.
just to make sure
No
everybody
problem.
knows. So today we're going to talk about how to use your self-directed IRA to increase your personal wealth. That sounds like a good goal, doesn't it?
It's a great goal with me.
And we need to talk about how to use other people's IRAs to fund your current investments. So this is not only for the people that actually have IRAs and they want to use them in new and creative ways like we're going to talk about, but also ways that you can learn to use other people's IRAs so that you can fund your current deals. And we're going to talk about that. And of course, where to find more information and education on this subject. So we do a lot of educational opportunities. They're live and then online, and you can go to our website and find out all the various places we're going to be. We're all over the country most weekends and sometimes during the week. So anyway, we'll talk about how to contact us later. So this is basics. So what is a self-directed IRA? Basically, it's just an IRA just like any other IRA because all IRAs are under the same code section in the Internal Revenue Code. So what's the difference? Basically, with a truly self-directed IRA, it basically allows you to have the broadest possible spectrum of investments, and that's because the only restrictions contained in your account agreement with the self-directed IRA are the ones that the IRS imposes. Everything else that can be documented and held and titled can probably be held in your self-directed IRAs. And a lot of that involves real estate, and we're going to talk about that here today. So what are some of the benefits? Well, obviously there's tax advantages, or else we wouldn't be talking about that, right? We like the picture of us with the money and Uncle Sam with his empty pockets, or whatever. Maybe Uncle Sam should be signing loan documents because that's what really happens. But anyway, but what we really talk about is the benefit. The big benefit of self-direction is that you get to take control of your retirement dollars and invest in what you know best. And for people like the people on the line that know real estate better than the stock market, typically, why shouldn't you have at least a portion of your portfolio in self-directed IRAs where you can control it with alternative assets like we're going to talk about. So what types of plans? We always got to make sure everybody knows. Everybody talks about the Roth, and we certainly do those, but there are actually 7 different types of plans you can self-direct, and that includes the traditional IRA. And I want to point out, Jim, that on this subject that it's important to know that the traditional IRAs contain not only that, $5,500 annual contribution or $6,500 if you're over age 50 by the end of the year, but it also includes rollovers from former employer plans such as 401ks or 403Bs or the government thrift savings program or whatever.
So
All of those
that's a
can be
big point to
rolled.
make because like all of
It
us
is.
know people that change jobs every year. And when they change
Exactly. And in
jobs, that's
fact,
like a stranded 401k, and all of that money sitting in that 401k is a huge opportunity to real estate investors to teach them how to do this and then start using it
exactly.
to fund your deals.
Exactly. And we're going to talk about that towards the end of the hour. We're going to talk about how to do that in a little more details. But the vast majority of money in traditional IRAs are actually rollovers from employer plans. And it does, as Jim says, give you an opportunity for funding. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Of course, you can do the Roth IRA, and you can do even the employer plan, such as the SEP IRA, the Simple IRA, or if you have no employees, you can even have your own 401k plan if you have the right kind of income, including the Roth 401k. You know, I think most people on the line probably know that there's limits to what you can, to the amount of money you can make and still put money in a Roth IRA, but there's no income limits for putting money in a Roth 401k. So those are excellent, excellent vehicles, but you do have to qualify for them. And unfortunately, if I went through each plan and all its features, we'd be here all day. But we certainly have the ability to answer questions if your listeners want to, contact us for more information. One of my favorite things is that you can also do what we call the "Would you like fries with that" accounts, which is the Coverdell Education Savings Account and the Health Savings Account. And I've used each of these types of accounts, the Coverdell's to fund my daughter's education tax-free instead of with after-tax dollars, and the health savings accounts. I've done some incredible deals, and I've got a health savings account that's worth about $130,000, and I continue to build that as the most important of my various self-directed accounts because of the tax advantages that accrue to an HSA. So anyway, like I said, I get all excited about the different types of accounts, but we'd never get done with what we're going to do there. But we do have classes that are pre-recorded, and we do have classes that are Facebook Live cast every Tuesday and 9:30 in the morning. That's Central Standard Time, and 6:30 in the evening. You can watch us on Facebook. You mentioned that, Jim, that you
Yeah.
use Facebook a lot. So do we. So anyway,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like a huge Facebook fan, but it is necessary to my network, Quincy.
well, me either, Jim, but I agree with you completely.
Um, like I've been doing Facebook Live videos also. And like the one I did
Hmm.
yesterday, by the way, I said hello to your wife, Marcia jumped on. So you never know who's going
Yeah,
to
actually,
jump on.
she saw that. She saw that actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
I was doing one from a rehab that we're doing where we're putting a patio in the backyard and stuff. And that video's had close to 800 views so far.
oh my goodness.
So
Well, we have quite a few views of
there's a
ours too.
stretch.
Yeah.
All we got to, just, and I'm jumping ahead, but one of the things you like to say is tell people what you do so they can work with you. Say it loud and say it
Yes.
proud, right?
That's right at the end of my presentation. You got it,
See,
Jim.
see, we've been buddies a long time. So say it loud and say
Have
it
we?
proud. Is there an easier way to do it than with Facebook? You don't have to go to an investor club meeting or anything. Just jump on live, tell people what you do, show them around the houses you're working on. Think of like what Cindy Crane does, Quincy. She keeps showing all these pictures of the houses. I mean, who
I
wouldn't be
know it's a
interested in working?
great.
Yeah. So it's powerful. People need to consider doing that. So it's a good point. Sorry for jumping in.
That's okay. That's okay. And just remember, we're going to go over lots of different techniques and examples, and each and every one of those 7 accounts can be used for all these purposes that we're going to talk about today. So, how would you like to learn how to earn 567,871.20 on a single deal, Jim? Would that be a good idea? I think it would be. And so I just want to tell you that's what Uncle Sam earned in taxes and penalties because somebody didn't pay attention to this next section. So
Okay, got you.
I'm
You
going to
got
go
my
over,
attention.
yeah, sorry about that. So I want to go over, my mom, Jim, when she wanted to know what really happened between the three of us boys who were always getting in trouble, she just asked me because I'd tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, whether it helped me or not. So I kind of want to spend just about 5 or 10 minutes, hopefully 5 minutes, to just going over some of the restrictions on self-directed IRAs because they're very flexible but not completely flexible. So let me just hit that for just a minute here. You cannot invest in life insurance contracts, nor can you invest in collectibles. That's it. That's the only restrictions contained in what you can invest in your self-directed IRA. And by the way, when I say self-directed IRA, I do mean IRAs, 401ks, and HSAs and covered education savings account. I just use the term self-directed IRA to include all of that. So those are the only investment restrictions. However, there's people restrictions, and by that I mean there's a group of people called disqualified people, and those people cannot benefit from or enter into transactions either directly or indirectly. And we're just going to kind of briefly hit that so that you get the idea that you are supposed to do your IRA transactions and investments on an arm's length basis. That's the whole concept here. So I just want to kind of hit that. These are some of the disqualified people. Of course, it looks kind of funny to say the IRA owner is a disqualified person to his IRA, but that is in fact the case. You're supposed to use, it's an individual retirement account, not an individual now account. So the concept is these people that you see on the screen are just too close to you, the IRA owner, to make this an arm's length transaction. So if you use your IRA to make an investment, it's supposed to be to benefit your retirement, not your current situation. Nor can you invest or directly or indirectly benefit your spouse, your ancestors, that's mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, your kids, grandkids, their spouses, or any corporation, partnership, trust, or estate owned or controlled by any of those people, or if that entity is disqualified, any officer, director, highly competent employee, 10% or more shareholder or joint venture, that sort of people. Those are all deemed to be too close to you. So, for example, just a quick example, if I have an IRA-owned property, can I hire my son's property management company to handle that? Well, the answer is no, because your son may be the most wonderful property manager in the world, but he's too close to you for that to be an arm's length transaction. So that's the basics of people restrictions.
Yeah, another one I see a lot is somebody will. I just saw this last week with somebody I know, Quincy. The husband used his equity trust. I'm sorry, but his equity trust account, and they bought and they flipped a house, and his wife listed it and sold it as a realtor.
Yeah, that's not the best plan. I suppose she took a commission on that too.
I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, so once you get the list of naughty people called disqualified persons,
we've all
then you can't do. Yeah, then you can't do certain things with those people, even though you can do all of these things with somebody who's not disqualified. If the person is disqualified, it makes these things a prohibited transaction. And so you can't sell, exchange, or lease property. So again, that would be an example of you can't, if you own a property, you can't sell that from your IRA. You can't buy from your IRA a property that it has purchased. You could, of course, take it as a distribution. And if you have that beach house in Belize that belongs to your IRA, you can't go down there and stay in it, even if you pay fair market value for the rent. You also can't lend money or have any other extension of credit. And I want to mention here that that includes you signing any kind of guarantee on any debt that your IRA may own or on property you may own. You can't advance earnest money. Things like that are just extension of credit. And you can't sign a guarantee on behalf of an IRA-owned entity either. But again, these are just, if you think about what I'm saying when I'm talking about this, I'm really saying that these are too close. They're just not arm's length transactions. Also can't furnish goods, services, or facilities. So if you have a piece of land owned by your IRA, you can't go and provide the materials and the services to build a house on that land, because that's just making a contribution to your IRA, and of your services and materials, and that's just a prohibited transaction. And really, it gets pretty broad here, Jim. You can't even have a transfer to or use by or for the benefit of a disqualified person, the income or assets of the plan. That's a mouthful, but again, yeah, all it's really saying is that either directly or indirectly, you can't benefit yourself or another disqualified person. Then there's the fiduciary self-dealing rules, which would, for example, have prevented a person that's a realtor from listing and taking a commission on the purchase or sale of an asset owned by their IRA. So fiduciaries have special restrictions on them as well. So I know that was kind of real quick and dirty thing, but basically if the IRS catches you doing a prohibited transaction, then your IRA gets disqualified as an IRA as of January 1st, the year in which it took place. Plus you pay taxes, interest, and penalties. You may lose your exemption in bankruptcy if a bankruptcy trustee finds it. And there are also penalties for other disqualified persons involved. So, for example, if you loan money to your daughter, not only do you lose your IRA, but your daughter gets penalized too. It has the potential for doing that. So, again, I just wanted to spend about 5 minutes, and that's about all. And we may have questions on it, Jim, but I wanted to kind of throw out there that whereas it's very broad and very flexible, and you can do wonderful things, it is intended for your retirement, not for your current consumption.
Okay, so here's a question.
Who you love.
This sort of goes into a gray area, but Gary Connor said, can my brother be the property manager?
You know, it's a very good question. I don't have too much problem with that. The brother is not on the disqualified persons list, but having said that, let me make very clear that the standard is that no disqualified person can either benefit either directly or indirectly. And so the question would be not, did your brother do something wrong, but there is always at least one disqualified person involved in the transaction. That's the IRA owner. So did the IRA owner make a decision that would indirectly benefit somebody in whom he or she had an interest, which would affect their best judgment as a fiduciary? So in other words, is this something where by hiring your brother to do the property management, maybe he got money that then he didn't have to rely on you to make his next car payment? I mean, I don't know. I'm just coming up with something out of the air. In other words, the question would be whether or not that was truly an arm's length transaction, or is a conflict of interest because he's just too close to the brother to make it an arm's length transaction. So certainly in something like that, Jim, you would always want to make sure it's on commercially reasonable terms. And if there was another choice, I'd probably make it.
And he said the follow-up question was, can my self-directed IRA fund my brother's LLC to purchase an investment property? The answer is it depends. Yeah, it depends a little.
Yeah, a lot of times, Jim, I'm getting feedback on my end. I don't know if you are.
Nope, you sound great to me.
Okay, good. So a lot of times the question is not easy to answer because, for example, I can say you can't make a loan to a disqualified person, and you can't benefit either directly or indirectly. And like we had some clients that we discovered recently had done this. They said, well, that's okay. Like it would be like me and you, Jim. You and I are not related. We don't have the same company together or anything. So they came up with a kooky idea, without our knowledge, of course, that they would loan each other the money, and then that way they're indirectly getting the money out of their account. So, one person loaned the LLC of the other person $35,000, and then that person's wife loaned the first person $35,000. So they effectively took money from their IRAs to make an investment without doing a distribution. Well, that's a prohibited transaction. So it can get kind of tricky, and you can ask, as a lawyer, I get asked questions and then they say, "Oh, by the way, did I tell you?" Fill in the blank. So we never want to make a blanket statement, and you just kind of have to understand the rules. And certainly, if you ask us questions, we'll do our best to educate you. But we do not give tax, legal, or investment advice, as I said. So you are kind of responsible for knowing the rules. But good questions, and thank you for asking them. Are we ready to move on? Well,
Take it
as I
away.
okay, well, we do always have IRA specialists that can guide you, but not give you tax, legal, investment advice. So if you ask a question and you called an IRA specialist, they would try to help educate you and point you in the right direction, but ultimately it's your decision to make.
That's a great point, Quincy.
Okay.
What's your phone number if somebody wants to call over to Quest and talk to an IRA specialist? Because it is a great way to go.
Yes, it's our 800 number is 800 52. Well, now I've forgotten my 800 number. Actually, let me give you the other one. It's 855 FUN IRAs. It's 855 FUN IRAs. If you dial that on your phone, which I don't have the number memorized, but we'll also have the phone number. The 320-5950 is what it is. 800-320-5950.
Very good.
That will be on the last slide of the presentation, and that contact information will be
Thank
there.
You.
So I wanted to cover, we're trying to give you a survey, so I wanted to cover real quickly that you can do Roth conversions, and you can convert traditional IRAs, including SEP IRAs, simple IRAs that you're participating in at least 2 years, and even former employer plans can all be converted to a Roth IRA. Used to be you couldn't convert if you made more than $100,000 or if you were a married person filing separately, but those restrictions were removed. So, of course, anytime you convert money from a pre-tax account like a traditional IRA to an after-tax account like a Roth IRA, then you're going to add that to your taxable income. I do want to just say that we have a long webinar on this topic on the Quest IRA website, how to analyze a Roth conversion. But I just kind of wanted to give a couple of examples of the possibilities that you're looking at. So this is one that we had back then, and a client had a opportunity to buy a distressed mobile home for not quite $12,000. And so he converted $12,000 in his Roth IRA, or from his traditional to his Roth IRA. Now, the most taxes he would have paid was 28%, and that's because in the year which he did this, you had to make no more than $100,000 to do a conversion. So we know he made less than $100,000. So the most he could have paid was $3,360 in taxes. Anyway, he bought the home for $11,613.22, including closing costs, and sold it to the neighbor just about 6 weeks later for a net of $25,134, and a note that paid off in 3 months later of $5,000 for a total tax-free profit of $18,520.78. I'd say that was a pretty good deal, wouldn't you, Jim? I'm thinking I would pay $3,360 any day.
Sounds good to me.
To make $18,520 tax-free.
Might do it a few times every day.
Exactly. Also wanted to mention an inherited Roth. One of the most powerful things that you can have is an inherited Roth, because although you have to take certain distributions from the Roth if it's inherited from somebody other than your spouse, still those distributions can be tax-free and penalty-free regardless of your age. So I got to kind of thinking about this, and I thought, what would that be worth to a child if I could leave a child $100,000 in a Roth IRA who was age 6 and had to start taking distributions at age 7? And it turns out pretty good. $100,000 starting amount if you could get 6% yield over the next 76 years, because it turns out that a 7-year-old has 75.8 years to go according to the U.S. government. You can look that up. If you could get a yield of 6%, they would get over $2 million for tax-free income in their life. If you could get them 12% consistently for 76 years, they would get over 80,496,000. And if you could get 18%, now that would be pretty hard to do, but if you could get 18%, you'd have 3,420,454,810. That would be something to keep your picture on the mantelpiece, I think,
Yes, and let
if
me
you could
tell you,
have that.
so Quincy, I just missed an $80 million opportunity because I know I can
Did
invest
you?
and make more than that percentage. You know what I mean? A good
Absolutely.
a good friend of ours who we've works at our title company just died, and I mean I've seen her every week of my life for the last 5 years because I do a lot of closings, and she's a dear friend. Cheryl and I visited her a couple times in the hospital, and when we left the last time, Cheryl had her laughing, and I thought everything was okay. 2 days later, she was dead. I just
Well,
didn't expect that, so I didn't ever talk to her about it. But I know for a fact she would have done it with us. You know what I mean?
yeah, there's a whole discussion for way more than an hour about
I'm
inherited IRAs and how you can get them set up and some of the benefits. But I just wanted to kind of
I'm
mention
glad you
those,
did.
and just to give you a good idea, we had a client, for example, that inherited a Roth IRA from her dad back in 2008, and she spent $68,850 of that to buy a property. Now, it was in Ohio, so it took her a while. The timing wasn't very good, but it took her a year and a half. But she sold it a year and a half later for 100,535 in net of expenses. She netted in that inherited Roth 19,831.21, and those are tax free and immediately available for distribution. She was in her 40s, and she could have done this real estate deal and said, "Hey, Quincy, can you send me $19,831 tax free, please?" And I would have said, "Sure." And so that's the kind of power that we're talking about with an inherited Roth IRA. And I know I just wanted to briefly introduce the topic. It is something you should check out and study more if you're really going to get into this.
I agree. Thank you.
So, what can you invest in a self-directed IRA? Well, lots of things. So we always answer that question with a question. And that is a key question is what kind of investments are you knowledgeable about? Because pretty much almost anything other than collectibles and life insurance you can buy in your self-directed IRA. Now, I'm going to guess that most of the people on the line here probably know more about real estate than anything else. So you can buy that in your IRA. And this can be just about anything, as you see on the screen there. It can be unimproved land, apartments, joint ventures, options, limited partnerships, commercial property. I'm just doing a limited partnership today, Jim, where I'm going to send money. We're buying a 196 acres on Maui in a very, very exclusive area for $900,000 because it's a distressed bankruptcy sale.
Wow.
And I made double my money in fairly short order on that transaction. So I'm
I
really
think
excited.
that
That's a limited partnership.
you and Marcia and Cheryl and I need to go check it out.
I think so. Absolutely. My wife says, as trustee for the 401k plan, it's my duty to go to Maui to check this deal
It's my
out.
duty to come as a friend, so I'll be there.
Yeah, all right. So anyway, options, debt finance property, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Just LLCs, just anything you can imagine pretty much you can buy in the self-directed IRAs. But as I always want to mention, Jim, I'm always putting these little caveats and whatnot in here. You do have to do what I call do the do. You have to
Oh,
do due diligence on
so important.
transactions because people can and do lose money in self-directed IRAs because they don't pay attention. And self-directed IRAs are always most effective when used to invest in what you know best. Like, for example, somebody called me one day, Jim, and said, "We are so excited we got the contract to provide all the educational films for the country of Poland. I was like, that's not something I know much about,
Right.
can't do my due diligence on, not very interested in that. So you stick with what you know, and that's the most powerful thing.
Good.
Remember that scammers are very convincing at what they do. So always, always do your due diligence. And also another tip, that scammers are almost always in a hurry. They will make you believe that if you don't make this investment right now, you'll lose the opportunity of a lifetime. And the more somebody wants you to hurry, Jim, the more you should slow down and be cautious. Now, I'm not saying that these tips are all necessarily indicative that it is a scam, but they're red flags, Jim, and you know what
I
I'm saying? You
totally
got to be
agree.
careful.
No, totally agree. It's good advice.
And the claims made by scammers, because they're wanting to hurry, they're almost always unverifiable, and again, that's a indication of problems. And the big thing that I always say, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If somebody's telling you you're going to get 36% a month on your money, be cautious with that. So again, there are great investments. There are ways to do things, but always do your due diligence. It's not really rocket science. I mean, understand what the investment is. Check out both the investment, but also the people involved in the company. Check those out too. Don't solely rely on the information provided. That's a big mistake that people do. They see the slick information provided and they go, oh, this is good. No, go ahead and do some verification. Use professionals if you need to help evaluate the transaction. Ask lots of questions and take your time. So these are just some tips that I wanted to throw in there for people that may be fairly new, and spending your precious retirement dollars, you got to be careful. All right, so how do you do this? Well, it's fairly easy. You open a self-directed IRA. Fortunately, we can help you with that. Then you have to move money into your account. We're not going to actually donate money to your account. That's going to be up to you to either transfer it from another IRA or to fund it with contributions. Then you have to locate your investment. We do not have a list of investments you can put in your IRA. That's something that's the freedom and the best part of a self-directed IRA is you can invest in whatever you know best. The downside of a self-directed IRA is you have to invest in what you know best, because we don't provide any investment choices. It's up to you to find your own investment. And then you complete paperwork. And everybody hates the paperwork, Jim. And you know what? I have self-directed IRAs, and guess what? I have to fill out the same damn paperwork that everybody else does.
But you know
And
what?
it annoys me every bit as much as it does you guys, but
the
that's the
direction
way
of the
it is.
investment form is pretty straightforward, so I don't find the
It
paperwork to be
is.
bad. I do the paperwork for my
And
private lenders I work with, so they don't have to.
that's a great idea, Jim. And of course, then we fund the investment. So we're going to go over now some investment choices. This is just a very simple example of an apartment complex bought by one of our IRA holders, paid $330,000 for it, had 10 units, cash flowed about $5,200 a month, which is not bad. That's, of course, not including the fact that you still have to pay taxes, insurance, maintenance, and all that. But overall, it's not a bad return on investment. And the best thing is he got not only the monthly cash flow, but the potential appreciation. Rehab and resale. Jim, I think you've done that a lot. A lot of people do that. Just an example, we had a client that had spent $101,000 for a property, spent $30,000 rehabbing it, and then sold it for $239,000, netting about $94,000
Wow,
after sales and holding costs. And that occurred over a period of about 3 months.
that's a great
So,
deal.
I mean, if you can take $136,000 and turn it into $239,000 in 6 months, I'd say that's a pretty good use of your money. Now, remember, you're not supposed to provide your own services, so let's be clear about that. You're not supposed to go and do the construction yourself or anything like that. But this is just an example of what the IRAs can be used for.
Good point.
And remember, I like this particular scenario because it's the good old purchase and flip. Remember when we used to be able to flip deals all the time, Jim, and nobody worried about it, and nobody was worried about how much profit you made and
Yep.
all that. But not quite as easy these days. But this is an actual example. It's one of my favorite examples because it's a commercial flip.
Okay.
And what happened is at a networking meeting, much like the type that you have, Jim, you have your networking meetings, somebody met a buyer for a major home improvement store, and what their job was to seek out and buy new land for new stores for the company that they worked for. And most people, Jim, they would say, "Oh, that's interesting," and would just kind of go away. But my client in this case said, "Oh, that's interesting. I think I'll connect up with my buddy who's a commercial real estate broker and see if we can find a deal which fits this information that I have now obtained." So they went searching and they put a deal under contract for $500,000. The odd numbers there because of acreage adjustments. And then they called up their new best friend, the buyer for the home improvement store, and said, "Have we got a deal for you? We'll sell you this land for $650,000." And the home improvement store said, "Sounds good." They did all the due diligence, and on the day of closing, I actually got two sets of papers, one to buy it for $503,000 and change, and one to sell it for $650,000. And they split $146,281.40. And the only thing that came out of their account was the earnest money, and that's it. All the rest of it was all the work, all the due diligence was done
Wow.
by the people, the home improvement store people, and it took about 9 months to close. I mean, I don't want
No, I know,
you to
but what a
think
great deal to keep in mind and be on the lookout. There's opportunity everywhere. We got a couple of quick
well.
questions. Is that okay?
Oh, great, awesome, yes.
So Rusty King said, so if you're working on a property, like rehabbing it, even if you don't pay yourself, you're not supposed to do any work there, correct?
That is correct. Even if you're not paying yourself, you're not supposed to do any work. Think about it this way: the government wants to get paid for your taxes on your services. Does that make sense to you? And they want to collect Social Security, Medicare taxes, and income taxes. So if you're donating your services to your Roth IRA, they're never going to see money on that, and they don't like that idea. So no, you're not supposed to do that. Now, of course, Jim, you know that there's not going to be any little IRS agents following you around looking, but the very good question, and the answer is no. You're supposed to hire other people to do the construction and rehab and stuff like that, and keep your. I mean, you can, I suppose, supervise in the sense of making sure they're doing their job, but you are not supposed to do the rehab yourself. So it's a great question. What else have we got?
Let's see. The other one is Michael Forbes said, is there a professional company you can recommend to help evaluate these companies? I think he's talking back on due diligence here, but Michael,
Due
maybe you
diligence,
want to
yeah.
double check that.
That would not be something that would be possible to do because each situation is so unique. I mean, there are common sense things you can do. You always look the company and the people up on rip-off report. You can check criminal records and lawsuit records, where the company and the people are located. Those are some of the things that I do when I am thinking of investing in a new company that I haven't dealt with before. Uh, you know, just the type of due diligence you do is so much related to the type of transaction that it's hard to make a recommendation for a particular company.
It's a good point. You need to
What
do
else
your
you
own.
got?
I think that's the best kind. It's a good answer.
Okay, we got any other
Nope,
questions
that's
at
it
this
for the
point?
moment.
Okay. Well, the point that I want to end on this particular slide is that with self-directed IRAs, you get to learn information, and then you can actually go and create a transaction which fits the information that you have learned. And that's the power of this particular example. The numbers are great, and I'm not going to use a bad example, of course, But the power of the example really that I wanted to have out there is that he acquired information and he took that information and made a deal work within his retirement account to tremendous benefit for himself. Okay, so hold for appreciation. Jim, even you, everybody can do this online. This is not tricky. Would you agree that you can buy a house or a piece of property in the path of development and wait for the price to go up? That's not a hard one, is it?
Nope.
So that's what this guy did. He bought a tax foreclosure property for $10,000, but it was really more than that because what he did is he bought it before the lady went to the tax sale, paid $10,000. The house, Jim, was worth nothing. I mean, it was old, but it was in the path of development, and this guy knew it was in the path of development. So he said, "I'll tell you what, I'll buy your house for $10,000 with my Roth IRA, and then I'll let you live there for free for 2 years." So really what the Roth paid was $10,000 plus no rent, no revenue, even though he had expenses for the next 2 years. And when she moved out a couple of years later, he sold it to a developer for $325,000, netting in his Roth IRA almost $278,000, and that was tax-free forever. Now, the guy was in his 30s, so he doesn't get to see that money for quite some time. But I think it's easier to build your retirement wealth with $300,000 in your account than with $10,000. Don't you agree?
I would rather do it that way.
Okay, so now we're going to talk briefly about leverage. And you know, Jim, this is one of my favorite topics, as you know, right? So you and I talked about this. In fact, I wrote a whole speech for you, Jim, on the use of leverage. And we're talking about the use of a small initial amount in order to gain a very high return in relation to the initial investment or to control a much larger investment. How do you do that? Well, you can do that with debt. This is an example of a debt finance deal where a guy knew how to buy a hunting property in Texas. That's what his specialty was. He's a commercial real estate banker, and he used to like to buy hunting property because we're in Texas, Jim, and we like to kill things in Texas, whether they be animals or humans or whatever. We just like to kill things.
Anything with a pulse.
Hunting property, yeah, hunting property is very valuable. So he found a hunting property he could purchase, a couple hundred acres for $438,900. And he didn't want to spend all of his IRA money. He actually had more than that in his IRA, but he arranged for a loan of $307,000 for his IRA, not for him. And it was an 8.15% fixed rate loan with annual payments of $25,000 or so. And it was a non-recourse loan. Now that's real important. Non-recourse financing is what any IRA has to have. You cannot have a personal guarantee on the note, and your IRA cannot be responsible for the rest of the money. So if I had a non-recourse loan and I had $1 million in cash and I had a $100,000 non-recourse loan and I defaulted on it, non-recourse part means all that the lender can do to recover anything is to take the property, and they can't rely on the rest of the money in the IRA, and they can't rely on my personal guarantee either. So that's a restriction on borrowed money for IRAs. But anyway, so he bought this, and the total cash from the time that he held this property out of his IRA, including the down payment and the first year's payment and property taxes and whatnot, was $137,391. He then sold it 18 months later for $614,460 in cash. That was profit of $124,462. But there's some news here. If your IRA owns a debt finance property, and again, this topic is worth a whole hour by itself. If your IRA owns debt finance property, the part of your profits that you made off of the debt financing are going to be subject to tax. So he was like 70% leveraged on this deal. So that meant that 30% of the profits were completely tax-free because that's his IRA's money, and 70% were actually subject to tax And so, but the good news in this case, it was long-term capital gains. So the tax that his IRA had to pay, and again, this is not him, but his IRA had to pay was only $12,591, and that meant that his after-tax profit on an outlay of $137,000 was $111,871. That's a pretty good cash-on-cash return, wouldn't you say? So I like that deal. He made a cash-on-cash return of 81.43% in 18 months, but his IRA had to file a tax return and his IRA had to pay some tax. But I think it's worth doing. It's worth checking out. Again, this is just a survey kind of, but I wanted to bring the issue up to make sure people understood that that was a factor in IRA.
Yeah, don't let that keep you from making a great investment.
No, exactly not. Another way to do leverage is just to get an option, right? Options are not very well utilized in real estate investing. They should be utilized a lot more, I think. But for example, this person bought an option for $5,000 to buy a property for $191,000. So he paid $5,000 for the right for the next 3 years to buy a property for $191,000. It was on the tax rolls for $273,200. Wasn't really worth quite that much. And the deal was that the person that sold him the option had bought a house at the auction and fixed it up, but needed some curb appeal. So he wanted the $5,000 to do landscaping and whatnot to make it more curb appeal. And so once he did the landscaping, basically he found a retail buyer. Well, the problem was the retail buyer will pay around $250. I don't know the exact number, but the retail buyer would pay around $250 for the property. But he'd already promised to sell it to the Roth IRA for $191. So that was a little bit of a problem. But the Roth IRA had a problem too, is that they were about $196,000 or $186,000 short of having the money to exercise the option. So what they did is they just split the profits. The $5,000 was returned to the IRA along with half the profits. So about 3-4 months after he put $5,000 on the option, the Roth IRA got $35,191 back for an option cancellation fee. And that's just one quick, simple example of an option. Again, we have a whole class on options. And so I'm just giving you quick scenarios to give you a flavor of the variety.
Options are super powerful, but it could be a little complex also for brand new investors. But you could check that out on the questira.com website. And we have, yes, I think it's in our archives as well, so probably both places.
I think this is true. Here's another concept, if you don't abuse, might be worthwhile. Assignments of contract. I think that's a pretty basic wholesaling concept, is pretty good. Now, you don't want to do assignments of contract extensively in your IRA because then it might be not looking like an investment and more like a service. But anyway, this is an example. A guy put under contract a property in his daughter's Coverdell Education Savings account for $5,500. That was the total price because the house was fire damaged extensively. Earnest money was $100, and that, of course, came out of the daughter's Coverdell Education Savings account. He then went to a networking meeting. Jim, we keep coming back to these networking meetings, right? And he found somebody that would pay $14,000 for that property. So he negotiated an assignment fee of $8,500 for the contract. And that means in 30 days when the deal closed, he made an 8,400% profit on his $100 earnest money investment. I'd say that was pretty good.
I'd say that's good enough. And I'm glad you brought up networking again because it's so critical to all of our success. You're absolutely right.
Now we're going to kind of finish up here in the next couple of minutes with using OPI or other people's IRAs. That was a topic that you wanted to cover real quickly. So some of you are probably listening and thinking, well, I don't really have a big IRA. These deals sound great, but I don't have that much to to work with. So it's, why does this information important to me? It's because of OPI, of other people's IRAs. So you can actually create your own private financing source, and it's really almost unlimited. We've had people, Jim, that have borrowed tens of millions of dollars by just networking at Quest IRA events and developing their network of lenders and joint venture partners. And they've done tremendous
I mean, think
things.
about like a friend of both of ours is Tom Berry, right there in Houston, has done
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Tom
Yeah.
and Melissa are super. They've done a great job, and they invested all that into apartment complexes and made a lot of passive Quest account holders very happy with great returns, and they got some great assets, and it was a win-win.
Yes, and now they're selling those apartment complexes and making a ton of money too.
Yes, they sure are. They certainly are. And most of my private funding is through Quest as well. So you don't have to be in Texas to do it, but it does make it easier.
That's, that's right. Uh, so if you ask somebody if they've got any money, what are they going to say? No, I'm broke because, living day to day, the truth of the matter is, you got expenses. And if any money shows up in your bank account, you think, well, I really need a new car, or, you know, I really, my daughter wants to go to Southern Methodist University. That's my daughter, a expensive private school. And what happens to me, Jim, is money hits my personal bank account and there's just and it's like sucked out immediately for bills. And I'm not really complaining, and of course I'm exaggerating to an extent. But the truth of the matter is that retirement account money is more safe because they have to save it. They don't have access to it. So if you ask somebody if they have a traditional or a Roth or a SEP or a simple or a 401k or an education savings account or health savings account, they're probably going to say, yeah, I've got some of those because I can't touch the money to spend it, if you see what I'm trying to say. And those, then you can share the knowledge that you have that those can be used for investments, and then you can help them invest that money into your real estate transactions. So there are trillions of dollars out there in retirement accounts, and only about 3% of it or so is in self-directed retirement accounts. But we're working hard to change that, and we need your
So when
help.
you think about it, you got literally trillions with a T, which is more than most people can comprehend, and then a 97% opportunity to it's certainly more funding than you would ever need for your real estate deals, just with
Yeah,
this
as a
one
matter of fact,
source.
exactly. As a matter of fact, every time you have a meeting, Jim, and people come, there are millions of dollars available in that room for investment in your real estate deals. You just got to be the one that has the knowledge and the skill to explain things. And then basically, you say, "Let me help you earn more money on your money by investing in loans or joint ventures secured by real estate." That's not a really hard argument to make, I don't think, for a professional real estate investor because they can see the collateral, they can touch it, they can see the improvements, they can see the pictures on Facebook Live. It's not like Bernie Madoff with all my money, who just put numbers on paper. There's actual collateral, and if you can't make an argument that that's a better and safer and more secure investment than the scary stock market, you probably shouldn't be in real estate investing in the first place.
Right on.
And just to reiterate the point, and I've talked to Cindy Crane about this a lot. You don't have to just borrow money because a lot of people in the downturn, like even friends of ours, you and mine and yours, Jim, found out that having a lot of borrowed money, it sounds sexy at first because you get to keep all the profits, right? Except for the borrowed money. But you have a problem with no tenants or something, you've got to pay the monthly payment, right? Regardless of whether there's a tenant or not. So a lot of people have gone to partnering with other people's IRAs, where you got one person is the sweat equity, and the IRA will put up all the money to buy and rehab the property. I've done this myself on the money end of it, and the sweat equity partner puts up the deal and the management of the project, and the rents are split between the partners. And when the property is sold, the IRA gets its money first, and then the upside is split 50-50. We see those types of joint venture agreements all the time. So if you have skill and time but no money, and the IRA is supposed to make a hands-off investment, that's a marriage made in heaven. And we see that all the time. Another thing you can do is a hybrid, Jim. This is getting a little advanced, but you can do a hybrid. For example, one of my deals, I put up $35,000 to purchase and rehab a property, and 10% was the interest rate that I got, and then charged no points, no fees, no nothing. But then I got my money back plus half the appreciation. So essentially, the interest rate was calculated to eat up about half of the profits because it was a very profitable rental. And then so we split the profits, and then I got my money back plus half the appreciation. And the best part was I was not an owner in my IRA. A lot of people don't like to own real estate directly in their IRA. I was not an owner in the IRA. I was in the lender position, yet I had a share of the upside at the end. So that's some
That's the
concept that
best
you
of
can,
all worlds.
okay. And of course, if you have knowledge of this area and you know that IRAs can buy real estate and you happen to be selling real estate, you can sell real estate to other people's IRAs. And you can raise investment capital. Of course, you still have to comply with securities laws, but you can raise investment capital. Think about the fact that that limited partnership that I just talked about, I mean, they're using other people's retirement funds almost exclusively. And the deal is we're putting up all the money and they're going to get 25% of the profits. They may get several $100,000 just for their knowledge and skill of putting the partnership together and doing the deal. And the rest of us are just fine with that. We think that's a wonderful deal. We love for you should always love for your partners to make money no matter what, because you want to spread the love. So get the knowledge out there and then use their money. I want to close, Jim, with what you and I talked about before. Your network is your net worth. And you have created, Jim, an amazing network of people and talent that your people listening can then utilize to spread their knowledge and their investments across the country. You're no longer stuck in your little neighborhood. I have investments in Pennsylvania, Indiana, Michigan, Mississippi, Texas, and several other states because I have a network that I have established over time. And how do I establish that network? You and I have talked about this, and you alluded to it earlier. Always have business cards, and the business card should be related to your real estate investment, not just your regular job if you have one. And as you said, Jim, don't be shy about it. Say it loud, say it proud.
Yep.
Say, I am a real estate investor, or as I prefer to say it, Jim, I'm a real estate entrepreneur. And that means that I expect to make a profit off of what I do as an entrepreneur. And also it means that I'm something to be proud of. A lot of people say, oh, you're a real estate investor. You're a slimy, person that takes advantage of other people. Whereas an entrepreneur is viewed in a very positive light as somebody who's a go-getter, who expects to make a profit but is doing a good thing. And that's the way I prefer to think of being a real estate investor, is as an entrepreneur. Always have your real elevator speech. That is to say, if you had to make somebody aware of what you did in 30 seconds while you're riding between floors in an elevator, what would you say? I mean, I would say something like this personally. My elevator speech would be, hi, I'm Quincy Long. I'm a real estate entrepreneur and I help people solve their real estate problems. So that would be an example of an elevator speech. That might prompt them to say, what do you mean you solve people's real estate problems? Then I can go into how I take care of people that have houses that maybe need some help, or whatever,
Yeah, and
whatever
here's another
my shtick
version.
is.
How about this? My name's Jim Ingersoll, and I teach people how to make money in real estate without dealing with tenants, toilets, or giving up any of their time.
Perfect.
I mean,
That's
that's
another.
certainly they're gonna be like, wow, you teach people to invest and create returns, and I don't have to give up any of my time, deal with tenants or toilets. Or maybe you just say
Right.
without tenants and contractors. I mean, something like that.
Yeah. Well, you get the concept. The concept is how do you express what you do quickly and efficiently to raise curiosity, and that's an elevator speech.
Right on.
Also, you got to network, Jim. You got to go to local RIAs. You got to go to meetups. You got to talk to people. Does everybody online should ask themselves this question: does everybody that I meet know what I do? Do the people that I go to church with know what I do? Not that you're trying to sell people all the time, but do they know what you do? Do they know you're a real estate investor? Do they know you can help solve their real estate problems? Do they know you can help them invest without tenants, toilets, or contractors, right? If they don't, then you're not really effectively utilizing your network. Also, I always recommend traveling. If you travel, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. If you travel to an educational event, then those are the motivated people that are there, right? Because in my mind, if you'll take the time out to get on an airplane or get in a car and drive
Sure.
somewhere to an event, you're serious about investing. You go to a local RIA, you're going to have an 80 or 90% of the people that are just tire kickers. You go to Atlanta, Georgia, to a Dykes Boterford event or something, 95% of the people there are going to be serious investors. So traveling to educational events is important. And Jim, you knew I had to say it. You have to go on the Financial Friends Network cruises. Those
Oh
are cruises
yeah.
put on by Walter Wofford and myself, Quincy Long, and we do cruises a couple of times a year, and we create our financial network and we nurture our financial network. You've been on some of these cruises, have you
I
not,
think
Jim?
I've been on just about all of them. And
And it's worth it,
so
right?
it is. I will always go on as many as I can. But yeah, let's just talk about that real quickly because the next one's coming
Okay.
up at the end of January, which is coming around the corner faster than we think, right? And we're going to,
I know it's just quick.
let's see, Cozumel, Jamaica, and Grand Cayman or something, I think, right?
Exactly right. And that's January 22nd to the 29th. You can go to financialfriendsnetwork.com and get the information on that. But and I just mentioned that because, yeah, a little self-serving because I want you to come. I like to put it this way, Jim. I like to go on vacation. I like for other people to pay for it, and I'm willing to invite them along to come participate with me.
Yeah, and if you guys,
But
we always, there's a big chunk of my network that always comes. And every
exactly,
cruise, there's a chunk that come for the first time. So if you want to hang out
yeah.
with me and Quincy in the Caribbean, then I highly recommend you join us because it is a blast. And Cheryl, my wife, and Quincy's wife Marcia usually comes, and it's just a lot of fun.
Yep. And it's good networking. So basically, I want to just say the biggest problem that people have when they start is analysis paralysis. You understand that, don't you, Jim? Is that
I
well,
do.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. So my suggestion, open a self-directed IRA, start investing, and that's the best way to learn how to entice other people into investing with you is to do it yourself. And that's all I got, Jim. I'll just remind people that Quest IRA is the premier self-directed IRA provider. We hold all kinds of non-traditional assets. I think we've gone over some of that today. We provide a lot of free education, and we do fast and friendly service with no expedited fees. So we want your business, and if you want to get a hold of us, there's our contact information, 855-FUN-IRAs. That's 855-386-4727 or www.questira.com. Or you can reach Nathan or Nate or myself, Quincy, all at questira.com. I look forward to talking with some of you and providing you with the services that we offer. And thank you, Jim, for allowing me to share it. and I'll take as many questions as you guys have.
And guys, I just want to say, Quincy talked about that in the paralysis of analysis. And for anybody with like a technical background like myself, I used to be an electrical engineer, and we were taught to control variables to get a desired output and to do all of your analysis and all of that stuff. It's difficult to break out of that mold of controlling everything. And if you do that, you'll never do a deal. And so I just want to give a shout out to a couple of members who did their first deal this week. The first is Michelle Chenault. Michelle is in, I'm not sure if she's on, but she's been a broker in the Tampa area. And she told me a couple weeks ago when I talked to her, she's tired of finding deals and watching all of her clients make all the money while she sits on the sidelines. So she suddenly started lining up all these deals, and now she's connected the dots and she's capitalizing. And TJ Ward out of Las Vegas told me the same thing. He said he's been nervous about pulling the trigger. He finally did it. He's finally got his first rehab going. He's going to do a flip there in Vegas. So don't get Quincy's right as always, and you don't want to get so caught up in the analysis of a deal that you never pull the trigger or do a deal. Because this year, so many people are having the best investing year of their entire life. It's becoming,
I know I am.
I am too, and so many people are, I don't know how long it'll last, Quincy, but so many people are capitalizing on flipping retail right now that I was getting a bagel in line the other day, and the people in front of me were talking about it, almost like pre-bubble again. And
I got to mention just to support you on that, Jim, that one of our mutual friends that were on the IRA Fund Cruise told me that she's now getting, by buying and flipping the real estate as is, where is, she's getting as much money as she used to net by doing the rehab and then selling it.
Yep.
That's in Dallas.
Yeah, I'm sure. So it's great. Do you guys have any questions for Quincy or myself about investing or taxes or creating capital for your deals? Because as you connect these dots, you're going to do extremely well in today's market. Tommy Dyson, it's nice to see you on here also, and Jamie Young and Casey Capital and some of you guys that joined a little bit late. I can also unmute you and we can talk. If you just hold up your hand, there's a button to do that. We can talk a little bit. Or you can just type into your box you want me to unmute you. Gary Connor and Michael Forbes and Rudy and Jeff and Dave, thanks for your comments and your questions today. We love them and appreciate them very much. Hope you guys took a lot of notes. I did record this so you can go back and watch for it again. Make sure you connect through to those Facebook group and stuff like that. It's a good place to continue to ask questions also. Quincy, you're my rock star. I really appreciate your joining us today. I don't see any more questions coming in, and I don't see any hands going up. So everybody, if you want to continue the discussion, go to questira.com. There's an education link, and check out the networking if you're in Houston, Austin, or Dallas. I would highly recommend it. In fact, Quincy, I want to come someday all the way from Virginia if I can.
Absolutely. Come down. We're doing these things like this Saturday. We have our boot camp.
Yep.
Where we bring in various speakers and just have an incredible day of people that are joining us from all over the country. And we charge a little bit for that because of the cost of the event. But, those are worth going to. We're having one this weekend in Houston, and then next month we're having one in Seattle, Washington area. So.
Excellent. I want to come to one, so let's hook it up. I got some comments and maybe a question here. Anto from Kentucky said, thanks as usual. Oops, that's my title company calling me about a closing. Anto said, thanks as usual. Quincy presents heavy, useful content. That's a good way to put it, Anto. Well, okay, Gary, Gary's got a question about advertising in the newspaper. That's actually a securities question, Gary. And if you post it into our Facebook group, we've got Jillian Sidoti, our securities attorney, who can answer very definitively. But if you want to advertise something, I would recommend that you advertise to give away your ebook or give away educational material, not sell a security. It's a fine distinction to make, so be careful on that. Let's see. Shelly is got a comment from Columbus, Ohio. Also a very good market, so congrats for being there. Let's see. Casey Capital asked this, Quincy. How long does it take to get money transferred if we use Quest IRA?
Well, it depends on what you mean by transferred. If you mean transferred in, it would take us 24 to 48 hours to open the account, depending on how many applications we have on a particular day. And then we send the transfer information off to the other custodian, and it's really up to them as to how quickly they react. If you're talking about transfers in the sense of investments that are made, we fund every day, sometimes twice a day. So you get us the paperwork by the end of the day, it's usually funded that next day and sometimes quicker. So we're pretty quick about funding, but I'm not sure which way the question was directed.
Okay, and here's another question from Gary. He said, Quincy, I have a self-directed IRA with equity trust. Does Quest IRA charge anything to move it from equity to Quest, and how does that work?
Well, that's a great question. And of course, unless you're at one of our live events, we do have an account opening fee, but we don't charge anything for the deposit. So there is some hassle factor, for moving money from, money's not usually too hard, although that can be slow depending on where the custodian that's losing the money is and how quickly they react. But, the account opening fee is all that we charge for that activity. And then, from there, there's transaction fees and whatnot. But all of that's on our webpage. All the fees are on there, and we're happy to discuss fees with you anytime if you just give us a call. And sometimes if you go to the right live event, sometimes we even waive the account opening fee.
Yeah, you've done it at my boot camps. I mean, you always do it at my boot camps that I hold. So I think that's a nice thing when you guys do that.
Yeah. Good question.
Let's see. Here's another question. Everyone's opening up the question box now. Let's see. Do you recommend a traditional Roth self-directed IRA or a solo 401k?
Well, those are what I call apples and oranges. They're both fruit and they both taste great, but they're both different kinds of fruit. So a traditional or Roth IRA is for anybody that has working income or whose husband or spouse has working income and they're married filing jointly can have an IRA. When you got down to a Roth 401k or profit sharing / 401k plan, that is for people who have self-employment type income. And so you can actually have both of those. So for example, we have a 401k here at Quest IRA for the employees, and I'm the trustee of it. And of course I participate in that. But I also make every year a traditional IRA contribution, which I then immediately convert to a Roth. I also have HSAs and covered L's for my daughters. So those are not mutually exclusive. And when you say, well, do you recommend this or that or the other account, that's going to depend a lot on who you are, what your situation is, how much money you have as a goal to put in the account, and a lot of other factors. But
so it'd be good to call an IRA specialist maybe and talk it through.
Exactly. Right.
All right, here's a question from Jamie Young. Hey, Jamie. It says, how much does it cost if I find a like a private lender or a JV partner to convert his IRA to become self-directed? And I think she wants to talk. Let me unmute her, okay, Quincy? Hey, Jamie. Right. Jamie, can you hear us? She might not have a working microphone. All right.
Well, we can take if you call the IRA specialist here, we can take those calls even after this call is over.
That's a good point. All right, so somebody brand new, like I've done this with you guys a lot of times. I've taken a whole bunch of new people and sent them to Quest IRA. It's just
We appreciate that too.
well, you guys are awesome. So what you do is you get typically a little booklet to fill out, right? Talk about how that
Right.
process works a little bit.
So what we have is we have what we call easy starter kits, and so it's a little set of documents that you need to open and transfer money or roll over money and get your interested party or power of attorney and the step-by-step instructions on how to do that. So what I would recommend is if anybody is interested in helping people move money, well, that's part of the thing where I said if you do it yourself, you get an idea of what the account opening process is, and then you can help guide other people through that process. Because there's nothing like experience to help you understand something. And it's really not hard. It takes me less than 10 minutes to fill out an application like I have to do every year, Jim, because as I said, I like to make an after-tax contribution in my traditional IRA and convert it to a Roth. So I'm filling out those applications every year. And it's like a 5 or 10-minute process to fill it out, sign it, send it in. But, maybe the first time you do it, it may take you a little longer to understand the process. But experience counts, and that's what I would recommend people do. Open their own account and then learn how to help these other people that they're trying to bring into a fold. You know how to open the paperwork. You help them with the paperwork. Like Jim, you said earlier,
Yep.
You said, well, I fill out all the direction of investment and everything for my people that are loaning me money from their IRAs. You do that because you want there to be no stress on their part at all, right?
Right.
You want the process to be easy for them. How do you make the process easy for them? You help them through the process. How do you know about that? You do it yourself. I mean, it all goes back to what we said earlier.
I like being on both sides of the table, Quincy. So I like lending some money and I like investing my own accounts. And of course, I like to be on the other side where I invest other people's funds as well.
Exactly. And I do all of the same things. Well, except for borrow money. I don't tend to borrow money, but that's just my own situation. But yeah, I have loaned lots and lots and lots of money. And now I will tell you, Jim, that now I've almost got to the point where I've got so many opportunities that what I do is I loan my money out as what I call relational capital. You talk about that a lot.
Yeah, it's important.
Where I make loans at good rates, but what's more important than the rate to me is the relationship with the other party.
I agree.
It's part of nurturing your network.
I agree. So, Jamie, I hope that answered your question. So it depends a little bit. I would recommend you call over to Quest and talk on the phone to the IRA specialist because it depends a little bit on the circumstances. Any other final questions? You guys have been really good. Casey Capital and Shelly and Gary and you guys, Michael, Rusty. We appreciate your questions very much. Quincy, thanks again for everything. You have a wonderful afternoon. And we really appreciate you participating in the Bank Elimination Blueprint.
I appreciate it, Jim, and you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you very soon on one of our Financial Friends Network trips.
You bet. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.